Hey there, tired listener. Yeah, you scrolling through your phone at 2 a.m., wondering why sleep won't come. Well, tonight we're going back, way back, to a time when staying up late wasn't a choice, it was survival. We're talking about night hunting in the prehistoric era, when the darkness wasn't just scary, it was actively trying to kill you. And before we dive into this pit of prehistoric anxiety, do me a favor. If this kind of historical suffering helps you drift off, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and smash that notification bell so you don't miss any future torture. And hey, drop a comment below telling me where you're listening from and what ungodly hour it is for you right now. Misery loves company, and I'd love to know I'm not the only one awake. Now, turn off your lights, get comfortable, sink into that mattress that your ancestors would have killed for literally, because tonight you're not lying on memory foam. You're on a pile of grass that may or may not have bugs in it, and you're about to experience what it was like when going outside after dark meant you might become the meal instead of getting one. You know that feeling when you wake up at 3 a.m. and your brain decides to replay every embarrassing thing you've ever done? Your prehistoric ancestors had that too, except their brain was replaying that time they almost got eaten by a leopard. Because, spoiler alert, leopards loved eating people. Like it was their favorite hobby. 70% of baboon deaths in modern studies are attributed to leopards. And guess what? Your ancestors looked a whole lot like baboons to a hungry cat. The darkness around you isn't the cozy blackness of your bedroom. It's thick, oppressive, the kind of darkness that has weight to it, that presses against your eyeballs and makes you question whether you've gone blind or if the universe just stopped existing. There's no street lights out here on the savannah, no porch lights, no glow from your neighbor's house, just nothing. An absence so complete that you can't see your hand in front of your face, even though you know it's there because you can smell the dirt under your fingernails. And in that darkness, sounds. Oh, the sounds? A twig snaps somewhere to your left. Could be the wind. Could be a hyena. Could be that leopard we mentioned. Your ears strain so hard trying to identify every rustle and crack that they start making up noises. Was that breathing? Are you breathing? Is something else breathing? Congratulations. You've just discovered anxiety. Welcome to being human. Your heart's hammering now, which is ironic because you're supposed to be resting. That's the thing about prehistoric sleep. It wasn't really sleeping. It was more like aggressive eye closing while your nervous system stayed on high alert. Studies of modern hunter-gatherers show that their sleep patterns evolved specifically to keep someone awake at all times. A biological security system born from thousands of years of things going bump in the night. You shift on your grass bed and immediately regret it. Something crawls across your arm. You freeze. Is it venomous? Probably not. Is it disgusting? Absolutely. You brush it away, and now you're awake. Fully, completely, miserably awake. And you know what that means. If you can't sleep, might as well hunt. Because here's the thing about prehistoric life that nobody tells you. The night wasn't just for sleeping. Sometimes it was for hunting. Yeah. While you're lying there in 2025, complaining about insomnia, Your ancestors were deliberately staying up to catch their dinner in the dark. And not because they were thrill seekers or adrenaline junkies, because sometimes night hunting was the only way to get food without becoming it. The other people in your group are scattered around the cave entrance, some snoring, some twitching in their sleep, some lying perfectly still in that way that makes you wonder if they're dead, or just really good at sleeping. There's maybe 15 of you total. Not a huge group, but enough that statistically, someone's always awake. Tonight, that someone is you. Lucky you. You can feel the weight of the stone tool in your hand. You've been gripping it for who knows how long, knuckles aching, because letting go means being defenseless. The stone is cold, rough against your palm. You made it yourself, chipping away at a larger rock until it had an edge sharp enough to cut through hide. It took hours. It'll be dull again by tomorrow. That's the thing about stone tools. They're disposable in the worst way. So you're awake. Congratulations. You and about 3 other people in your group, because that's how prehistoric sleep worked in shifts that nobody planned but everybody's biology somehow agreed on. It's what scientists now call the sentinel hypothesis, which is a fancy way of saying your ancestors evolved to be insomniacs for survival. Isn't evolution beautiful? It gave you the ability to lie awake at night worrying, and it's been doing that for millennia. You sit up, careful not to disturb the person next to you, probably your grandmother, who sleeps even worse than you do. Recent studies show that older adults in hunter-gatherer societies have different chronotypes, making them natural night owls. The poorly sleeping grandparent hypothesis is real, and it means that evolution literally decided old people should have insomnia to protect the group. So next time your grandma complains about not sleeping, remember, her ancestors stayed awake so yours wouldn't get eaten. The cave mouth is a lighter shade of black against the darkness. Not bright, not welcoming, just less opaque. Like looking at charcoal versus looking into the void. You can make out silhouettes of rocks, the vague shapes of people, and if you squint really hard, maybe the outline of trees against the slightly less dark sky. 3 other shapes are moving, slowly, quietly. The other insomniacs. You recognize them by their movements because you sure can't see their faces. There's no moon tonight, which means visibility is approximately 0, which means any hunting you're about to do is going to be based purely on vibes and the hope that you run into something edible before something toothy runs into you. One of the shapes moves closer. You can smell him before you see him, a combination of smoke, sweat, and that particular funk that comes from not bathing in, well, ever. He grunts. You grunt back. This is prehistoric communication at its finest. The grunt means, "Are we doing this?" Your return grunt means, "I guess we're doing this." Because here's what you've figured out, through trial and error and watching other people die. Certain birds sleep in caves at night. Choughs, specifically. Members of the corvid family, black-feathered and surprisingly meaty. And they roost in the dark recesses of the very caves humans like to sleep in. It's like prehistoric room service, except the room service might peck your eyes out if you're not careful. Your little hunting party starts moving. 4 of you. Not enough to take down a deer. Not enough to fight off a leopard if one shows up. but enough to catch some birds, maybe. You're not the apex predator here. Not even close. You're more like medium-tier scavengers with delusions of grandeur. The darkness as you move deeper into the cave system somehow gets worse. You didn't think that was possible, but congratulations. You've discovered super darkness. This is the kind of black that makes you forget what colors look like. You shuffle forward, one hand on the cave wall, and the stone is cold enough to make your fingers ache. It's damp, slimy in places. You try not to think about what's making it slimy. Water drips somewhere in the distance, each drop echoing like a countdown. Drip, drip, drip. It's the only sound besides your breathing and the soft scrape of feet on stone. No one's talking because talking attracts attention. And attention from the things that live in caves at night is attention you don't want. Your eyes have adjusted as much as they're going to, which is to say, not at all. Homo sapiens have decent night vision compared to some animals, but compared to the Neanderthals, who used to do this kind of hunting, you're basically blind. They had bigger eyes, better low-light vision, shorter legs for climbing in caves. You get to stumble around in the dark and hope you don't break your ankle on a stalagmite. The person in front of you stops suddenly. You bump into them. They grunt annoyed. You grunt back apologetic. The social dynamics of prehistoric hunting parties were apparently just as awkward as modern group projects. Someone fumbles with something. You hear the scrape of stone on stone. Smells something acrid, sharp. Then, light. Not light like you know it. Not the clean glow of an LED bulb. This is fire. Smoky, flickering, unreliable fire that was probably taken from a lightning-struck tree days ago and has been kept alive through sheer paranoia and constant feeding. The torch is a branch wrapped in dried grass and animal fat, and it smells like burning hair, but it's light. Blessed, precious, terrifying light. And immediately, everything changes, because now you can see, and more importantly, now you can be seen. The torchlight doesn't illuminate the cave so much as it argues with the darkness. Every flicker creates shadows that jump and twist like living things. The cave walls reveal themselves in fragments. Here a rough patch of limestone, there a dark crevice that could contain literally anything. Your brain, helpful as always, suggests that it probably contains something with teeth. The scientific term for what you're about to do is fire dazzling, which sounds way cooler than it is. The reality is, you're going to use fire to blind and confuse birds so you can grab them with your bare hands. It's the prehistoric equivalent of shining a flashlight at a deer, except the deer is a bird. The flashlight is a flaming stick, and if this goes wrong, you might set yourself on fire. You move deeper into the cave system. The torchbearer goes first, holding the flame high. The smoke rises, black and thick, and you're immediately coughing because smoke inhalation is just part of the prehistoric experience. Your ancestors didn't have OSHA regulations. They had try not to die, and that was pretty much it. The cave narrows. The ceiling drops lower. You're hunching now, and your back is already complaining because proper posture hasn't been invented yet. The stone beneath your feet is uneven. scattered with rocks, and what you hope is just dirt, but could easily be bat guano or worse. Each step is a calculated risk. Twist an ankle out here, and you're useless. Break a leg, and you're dead. The math is simple and brutal. Then you hear it. A rustling, a shifting, the soft clicking sounds of birds disturbed in their sleep. They're here, the choughs, roosting in the upper reaches of the cave, packed together for warmth, completely unaware that their midnight is about to get a whole lot worse. The torchbearer raises the flame higher. The light catches them dozens of black shapes pressed against the cave ceiling, wings tucked, heads buried. For a moment, they're just sleeping birds. Peaceful. Then someone makes a move too quickly, and chaos erupts. Birds explode into motion. Not flight, they're too disoriented for that. They flap and crash and screech, bouncing off walls, off each other, off you. A wing hits your face. Feathers are in your mouth. You're grabbing at air, at shadows, at anything that feels like it might be bird-shaped. Your hands close around something warm and frantically beating. You've caught one. It's struggling. Claws scratching your palms. Beak pecking at your fingers. You hold on. Because letting go means going hungry. And going hungry means weakness. And weakness means being the one who can't run fast enough when something with bigger teeth shows up. The bird is screaming. You're pretty sure you're bleeding. Someone else has caught two birds and is trying to hold them while they simultaneously try to escape and murder him. This is hunting. Not the glorious, heroic activity that gets painted on cave walls. This is frantic, messy, desperate scrambling in the dark while birds attack you and smoke chokes your lungs. Your ancestors weren't majestic hunters stalking prey across golden plains. They were stressed-out night shifters grabbing whatever protein they could find. The torchbearer has moved to the cave entrance, trying to block the bird's escape route. The smart ones and birds are smart, way smarter than you'd like them to be, are flying toward the exit, toward freedom. Some make it. Some fly right into a net that someone had the foresight to string across the opening. The net is made of plant fibers, woven by hand over countless hours, and the birds tangle themselves in it beautifully. You've caught maybe 3 birds total. Your hunting party collectively has about a dozen, which sounds like a lot until you remember that each bird is maybe the size of a pigeon, and there's 15 people back at camp who haven't eaten anything substantial in 2 days. The math isn't great. It never is. But here's the thing. 2 to 3 choughs provide enough energy for a full meal for one adult. And if you're skilled and desperate, a group can catch 40 to 60 birds in one night. Of course, that requires luck, timing, and the birds not figuring out that caves are death traps and finding somewhere else to sleep. You make your way back toward the entrance, birds in hand, still flapping occasionally in pathetic attempts at escape. Your arms ache. Your face stings where something beak or claw caught you. There's bird crap on your shoulder. You smell like smoke and feathers and failure, but you've got food, and that's what counts. As you emerge from the cave, the outside darkness feels almost bright by comparison. Your eyes have been assaulted by torchlight, and now the night seems less oppressive, more familiar. The stars are out, tiny pinpricks of light that do absolutely nothing to help you see, but at least remind you that the universe exists beyond this immediate nightmare. And then you hear it, a sound that turns your blood to ice water, a low, rasping cough that echoes across the rocks. Somewhere in the darkness, something is breathing, something big, something that's been watching you this whole time, waiting to see if you're prey or competitor. A leopard, because of course it is. Let's talk about leopards for a second. Beautiful animals, graceful, deadly, and absolutely obsessed with eating your ancestors. Studies of leopard scat, that's poop. For those of you not up on your scientific terminology, show that a significant portion of their diet was primates. Ribs, fingers, toes, skulls. All the parts that look remarkably similar to your skeleton. When scientists describe finding hominin fossils with leopard tooth marks, they're talking about your great times a million grandparents getting munched. The cough comes again, closer. Leopards make this sound when they're hunting, a sawing rasp that's meant to freeze prey in place. And congratulations, it's working. You're frozen. Everyone's frozen. 4 humans holding dead birds, standing at a cave entrance, lit by a dying torch that's currently advertising your location like a neon free buffet sign. Your night vision, which was finally starting to adjust, is completely shot because of the torch. You can't see anything beyond the circle of flickering light. The leopard can see you just fine. Leopards have exceptional night vision, tapetum lucidum, and all those fancy eye features that evolution gave to predators and forgot to give to you. They can see in light levels 6 times lower than humans can. You're basically a spotlight dancer in a dark theater, and the audience has fangs. No one moves. Moving attracts attention. Moving says, I'm prey, in the universal language of predator-prey dynamics. But not moving also means you're just standing here, waiting to get attacked, and your brain is screaming at you to do something while your body refuses to cooperate. This is the anxiety your species inherited. This moment, right here. This is why you lie awake at night, worried about things that might happen. Because for your ancestors, the things that might happen usually involved being eaten. The torch flickers, dims. The fat and grass are almost consumed, and when it goes out, you're in complete darkness with a leopard somewhere in the vicinity. The person holding the torch makes a decision. They drop it, and the 5 of you run. Running in the dark across uneven ground while holding dead birds is exactly as terrible as it sounds. You can't see where you're stepping. Your feet hit rocks, roots, nothing. You stumble, catch yourself, keep going. Behind you, you can hear, or maybe you're imagining the sound of something moving fast, something with 4 legs and murder on its mind. Humans aren't built for speed. You know what is? Leopards. They can run up to 36 miles per hour. You, currently huffing and puffing and trying not to die? Maybe 15 miles per hour if you're lucky and motivated by pure terror. The math is not in your favor. It never is. But humans have one advantage. We're persistence hunters. We don't run fast, we run long. Except right now you need fast, and your cardiovascular system is having a panic attack trying to deliver it. Your lungs burn. Your legs are screaming. You're still holding the birds because dropping them means this whole nightmare was for nothing. And your brain insists that dying with dinner in hand is somehow better than dying empty-handed. Priorities are weird when you're about to be eaten. The camp is ahead. You can see the fire, another precious, carefully maintained fire that hasn't gone out because someone's been feeding it all night. The warm glow of it is the most beautiful thing you've ever seen. Safety, light, other humans who might help you not die. You burst into the firelight, and the people who were sleeping are now very much awake because you just arrived like a stampede. Everyone's shouting. You're trying to explain between gasps that there's a leopard. Someone's already grabbing weapons, rocks, pointed sticks, that one really good hand axe that someone spent 3 days making. The fire is built up higher. More wood, more fuel, making the flames leap and dance and create a circle of light that's supposed to keep predators away. The smoke rises in thick columns and everyone's coughing, but no one cares, because smoke and fire mean the leopard probably won't come closer. Probably. You collapse near the fire, birds still clutched in your hands. Your heart is trying to break out of your chest. Someone takes the birds from you, starts the process of preparing them, plucking feathers, a task that's going to take forever, and leave everyone covered in down. The birds will be cooked, barely, just enough to make them safer to eat than raw, and they'll be divided among the group with a fairness that's enforced by social pressure and the knowledge that you all need each other to survive. You can still hear it out there. The leopard, moving in the darkness just beyond the firelight, waiting, patient, because that's what leopards do. They wait until you're weak or alone or asleep. They're ambush predators, and humans, especially prehistoric humans without weapons beyond sharp rocks, are exactly the right size for a leopard meal. 70% of baboons die to leopards. Half of what leopards kill are primates. The numbers are etched into your DNA, into the anxiety that keeps you awake at night, into the fear of darkness that every human child is born with. This isn't irrational fear. This is genetic memory of nights exactly like this one, when dinner was successfully caught, but the cost was spending the rest of the night wondering if you were going to be someone else's breakfast. The fire crackles, the birds cook, the leopard waits, and you, exhausted and terrified and alive, realize that you get to do this all over again tomorrow night. Because this is life in prehistoric times. Every day is survival. Every night is a gamble. And sleep? Sleep is just the pause between terrors. Welcome to night hunting. Now you know why your ancestors evolved to have insomnia. So you survived the night. Congratulations. Your reward is watching someone butcher birds by firelight while your hands shake from adrenaline withdrawal. The plucking takes forever. Each feather has to be pulled individually, and there's hundreds of them. And your fingers are already sore from holding stone tools and death-gripping birds while running from a leopard. The process is tedious, mind-numbing, and necessary because nobody wants to eat a mouthful of feathers. The fire crackles and spits. Someone's feeding it constantly, adding branches and dried grass, keeping the flames high enough to ward off whatever's lurking in the darkness, but not so high that you waste precious fuel. Fire management is a full-time job. Let it go out, and you're spending tomorrow trying to start it again, which involves friction and patience and a lot of swearing that hasn't been invented yet. Or you're traveling to the nearest group that has fire and hoping they're in a sharing mood. The smell of burning feathers joins the general miasma of smoke, sweat, and fear. It's acrid, nose-wrinkling, the kind of smell that clings to everything and reminds you that cooking in prehistoric times is less culinary art and more making things slightly less likely to kill you. Raw meat carries parasites. Cooked meat carries fewer parasites. The math is simple. The execution is smoky and unpleasant. Someone's gutting the birds now. The stone blade is sharp for about 5 seconds, then it dulls and needs to be resharpened. This is the reality of stone tools. They're not the gleaming permanent weapons you see in movies. They're disposable, frustrating, and constantly breaking at exactly the wrong moment. Making a good hand axe takes hours. Using it wears it down in minutes. Your ancestors spent an absurd amount of time just maintaining their tools, resharpening, renapping, starting over when the stone flaked wrong. The bird intestines get tossed into the darkness beyond the fire. Waste. Except it's not really waste because in about 30 seconds something's going to creep up and eat them. Probably that leopard or a hyena or one of the many scavengers that follow human camps specifically because humans are messy and predictable. You're basically running a prehistoric drive-through for carnivores. They're out there right now, waiting for scraps, and occasionally working up the courage to try for something bigger than scraps. The meat gets skewered on sticks and held over the flames, not suspended on a fancy rack, just held by hand for however long it takes. Your arm gets tired, the smoke gets in your eyes, the meat drips fat that makes the fire flare and spit embers that land on your skin and burn. This is prehistoric cooking. It's interactive. It's painful. And if you get distracted and drop your dinner into the fire, congratulations, you just wasted all that effort for charcoal. The bird meat, when it's finally done, which means charred on the outside and possibly raw on the inside, is divided up. Not equally. Nothing's equal. The best hunters get more. The elderly get less unless they're useful for something like watching children or teaching tool making. Kids get scraps. Pregnant women get priority if there's enough to go around, which there usually isn't. The social dynamics of food distribution are complex, unspoken, and enforced by the knowledge that tomorrow you might be the one who needs extra, so you better not be a jerk today. You get your portion. It's small, 2 bites, maybe 3. The meat is tough, gamey, and tastes like smoke because everything tastes like smoke. There's no seasoning, no salt, unless you're lucky enough to live near a natural salt deposit, which you're not. Just meat and the vague char flavor of slightly too burnt bird. You chew. The texture is stringy. A tiny bone catches in your teeth. You dig it out with your fingernail, which is also dirty, and wonder if this is worth the effort. It is, because hunger is worse. Hunger is the constant companion, the gnawing emptiness that never fully goes away. You're not starving. If you were starving, you'd be dead. But you're always some degree of hungry. Always looking forward to the next meal. always calculating whether the energy spent hunting will be worth the energy gained from eating. Prehistoric life is a calorie budget that's constantly in the red. The food is gone in seconds. Everyone's still hungry. Someone suggests going back for more birds tomorrow night. Someone else points out that the birds might not come back after tonight's massacre. A third person mentions there's a stream a few hours' walk from here where fish sometimes gather. Fish are easier than birds. Fish don't fly away and scratch your face. The conversation dies out. Everyone's too tired for planning. Planning is tomorrow's problem. You lie back down on your grass bed. Your stomach isn't full, but it's fuller than it was. That's as close to satisfaction as you're going to get. The fire's still burning. Someone else's turn to feed it now. You can hear them moving around, the soft footsteps and rustle of vegetation being added to the flames. The smoke drifts across the camp, and you cough and close your eyes and try to sleep despite the hunger and the smoke and the knowledge that the leopard is still out there, waiting. Welcome to prehistoric dining. Michelin hasn't been invented yet. Neither has enough food. Dawn comes slowly, reluctantly, like it's not sure it wants to deal with this day either. The sky shifts from black to dark blue, to that sickly gray that means the sun's thinking about showing up eventually. You're awake. You've been awake. Sleep was fitful at best, interrupted by strange sounds, strange dreams, and the very real discomfort of sleeping on packed earth with nothing but grass between you and the ground. Your back hurts. Everything hurts. But here's the thing about prehistoric pain. There's no Advil, no heating pad, no calling in sick to work. You're injured or you're functional. And if you're injured badly enough to not be functional, you're probably going to die, unless your group decides you're worth the resources to keep alive. That sounds harsh, but when everyone's operating on a calorie deficit, altruism is expensive. Studies of Neanderthal remains show individuals who survived serious trauma-broken bones, infected wounds, disabilities that should have been fatal. Someone took care of them, fed them, protected them while they healed. This suggests some form of compassion, or at least an understanding that today's injured person could be tomorrow's valuable group member. But it also suggests that survival with serious injury was notable enough to leave marks in the fossil record. Most people with serious injuries probably didn't make it. You sit up, your neck cracks. The sound echoes in the quiet morning, and someone across the camp grunts annoyed or acknowledging. It's hard to tell. The fire is down to embers. Someone needs to rebuild it before it goes out completely, which is a job nobody wants, because it means crouching in the smoke and arranging kindling while your eyes water. You don't volunteer, neither does anyone else. Eventually, the person whose turn it is will do it, or the fire will go out, and everyone will be miserable until it's restarted. The light reveals details that were hidden in darkness. Your hands are filthy. Soot under the nails, dried blood from last night's bird handling, general grime that's accumulated over days or weeks. There's no running water. The nearest water source is a stream, maybe half a day's walk, and the water there is questionable at best. You drink it because the alternative is dying of thirst, but it tastes like minerals and mud, and probably contains parasites that'll make you sick later. Giardia hasn't been named yet, but it definitely exists, and it's definitely going to make your life miserable. You stand, your legs protest. There's a bruise on your shin from last night's panicked run that you don't remember getting. There's probably a lot of bruises you don't remember getting. Pain is constant enough that you've learned to tune it out, unless it's actively debilitating. This is life before pain management, before anti-inflammatories, before the concept that discomfort is something to be minimized rather than endured. The camp stirs. People emerge from sleep in stages, the old ones first, because they barely slept. Then the younger adults. Then finally the children who somehow managed to sleep through everything, including the leopard incident. Everyone looks tired. Everyone looks hungry. This is the default state of existence. Someone's examining the tracks from last night. Not your footprints, the leopards. They're impressed into the soft dirt just beyond the firelight circle, clear as day now that there's actual daylight to see them. Tracking is a skill your people have honed over millennia, passed down through generations, crucial for both hunting and not being hunted. The tracks tell a story. Where the leopard came from, where it went, whether it's still nearby. The tracker is good, expert level, the kind of person who can look at a partial print and tell you not just what species made it, but the approximate age, sex, which foot, and whether the animal was walking or running. Studies of modern indigenous trackers in Namibia show they can identify animal tracks with over 90% accuracy, including details Western archaeologists miss entirely. This knowledge isn't written down. It's learned through observation, practice, and a lot of time spent staring at dirt. The verdict: male leopard, adult, large. He circled the camp twice before leaving, which means he was considering his options. He'll be back. Leopards are territorial, and you're in his territory now. The good news is he didn't attack. The bad news is he didn't attack yet. Someone suggests moving camp. Someone else points out that moving means leaving this cave, which provides shelter, and finding another cave, which might already be occupied by something worse than a leopard. Cave bears exist. So do hyenas, who specifically like cave dwelling. The devil you know versus the devil you don't. Except both devils want to eat you. The decision is to stay. Post better sentries. Keep the fire higher at night. Maybe set up some kind of barrier rocks, thorny branches, something to make it harder for large predators to casually wander in. It won't stop a determined leopard, but it might make him decide easier prey is available elsewhere. You're betting your life on might. That's prehistory in a nutshell. Food is low. It's always low, but today it's critically low, which means hunting isn't optional. The question is, what are you hunting? The answer is, whatever you can find. Prehistoric hunting wasn't the romantic, noble savage stalking majestic prey. Narrative, it was desperately searching for anything edible while trying not to become something else's meal. Your hunting party assembles. 5 people this time, more than last night's bird expedition, because today you're hunting something bigger. Hopefully. The tools are distributed. Hand axes, spears with fire-hardened tips, rocks for throwing. Everything's made from materials that would biodegrade within years if left alone. which is why archaeologists find so few intact prehistoric weapons. Your entire arsenal is temporary, fragile, and likely to fail at a critical moment. The tracker takes point. They're reading the ground like a book, interpreting smudges and bent grass and disturbed pebbles that you can barely see. There's animal activity here. Deer prints, maybe gazelle, something medium-sized that would feed the group for a day or two if you could catch it. The prints are hours old, fresh enough to follow, old enough that the animal has a significant head start. You walk, and walk, and walk. Persistence hunting is humanity's superpower, the thing that let your ancestors compete with faster, stronger predators. You're not fast, you're not strong, but you can walk forever. You can track an animal for hours, days if necessary, until it's exhausted and you're just tired. The trade-off is that you're spending enormous amounts of energy on the hope of a payoff that might never come. The sun rises higher. It's hot. Not modern hot with air conditioning hot. Genuinely, desperately hot. You're sweating, losing water you can't afford to lose, because the nearest reliable water source is back at camp, and you didn't bring any with you, because water containers haven't been perfected yet. You might find water along the way. You might not. Dehydration is a real, constant risk. The terrain is harsh. Rocky outcroppings that require climbing. Dense vegetation that scratches exposed skin. Open areas where the sun beats down mercilessly. Your feet, wrapped in poorly cured animal hide that passes for shoes, are developing blisters. The hide rubs. The ground is uneven. Every step is a minor exercise in discomfort that accumulates into major misery over hours of walking. The tracker stops, holds up a hand. Everyone freezes. There's something ahead. Movement in the undergrowth. Could be the deer, could be a predator, could be another human group. And human groups are sometimes more dangerous than predators. Interpersonal violence is well documented in the fossil record. Skulls with healed fractures, defensive wounds, evidence of attacks that the victim survived and attacks they didn't. Your own species is often your biggest threat. The movement resolves into nothing. A bird. A small, completely useless bird that flies away before anyone can react. False alarm. Everyone relaxes, then immediately tenses again, because relaxing is how you get killed. The tracking continues. Hours pass. The deer tracks lead to a stream dried up. The animal drank here, maybe yesterday, when there was still water. Now it's just cracked mud, and the faint smell of stagnant water that seeped into the ground. Your throat is dry. Your lips are cracking. You kneel at the dried stream bed and dig with your hands, hoping to find moisture deeper down. You find mud, wet mud. You squeeze it, and a few drops of brown water drip out. It's not appetizing. It's arguably not even water, but you're thirsty enough that you bring it to your mouth and suck the moisture from the mud. It tastes like dirt, because it is dirt, with water in it. This is hydration in prehistoric times. The tracker has lost the trail. The deer went through the stream when it still had water, and the prints are gone. You're now searching blindly, hoping to pick up the trail on the other side. But the undergrowth is thick, and the ground is hard. and there's nothing obvious. This is the reality of tracking. Sometimes you lose them. Sometimes hours of effort results in nothing. The sun is past its peak. You've been walking for most of the day. The energy expended is significant. The energy gained is zero. Someone suggests heading back to camp. Someone else insists on searching longer. The discussion becomes an argument. Voices rise. Tempers flare. This is what happens when everyone's hungry and tired and frustrated and operating on zero margin for error. A decision is made. Spread out. Cover more ground. Meet back here before sundown. It's risky smaller groups are more vulnerable to predators. But staying together has yielded nothing. You're gambling again. Always gambling with death as the stakes. You head east, alone. Because somehow, in the reorganization, you ended up solo, which is possibly the worst outcome. Solo humans in prehistoric times were snack-sized. Every rustle makes you jump. Every shadow could be something with teeth. Your hand grips your spear so tight your knuckles ache, but loosening your grip means being unprepared. And being unprepared means dying. You find nothing. Hours of searching, and you find absolutely nothing worth eating. The sun is setting. Time to head back to the rendezvous point. You turn around and realize with creeping horror that you're not entirely sure which direction you came from. Getting lost in prehistoric times isn't an inconvenience. It's a death sentence. Panic is immediate and unhelpful. Your heart hammers. Your breathing quickens. Your brain, instead of calmly assessing the situation, helpfully reminds you of every story you've heard about people who wandered off and were never seen again. Because those stories exist. People disappear. Sometimes they're found later, dead from exposure or predation or simple bad luck. Sometimes they're never found at all. You force yourself to think. The sun is setting. That's west. You were traveling east. Therefore, west is the way back. Basic navigation, that would be easier if you weren't currently having a minor breakdown. The rendezvous point is west. Probably. Unless you got turned around during your search, which you might have, in which case you're heading in the wrong direction and won't realize it until it's too dark to correct course. You start walking, quickly. Not quite running because running wastes energy and attracts attention, but faster than a comfortable pace. Your feet hurt. The blisters from earlier have definitely popped, and now your shoes are probably filling with blood and fluid. Infection is a concern for later. Right now, the concern is getting back before dark. The landscape looks different in evening light. Shadows stretch long and distort familiar features into strange shapes. That rock, did you pass it before? That tree, was it always that bent? Your memory is unreliable. Human memory is always unreliable. But stress makes it worse. You could be on the right path. You could be hopelessly lost. There's no way to know until you either find your group or don't. The sun sinks lower. Colors drain from the world, replaced by grays and blacks. Your night vision is terrible. All humans' night vision is terrible compared to actual nocturnal predators. You're entering their time, the shift change where diurnal animals bed down and nocturnal animals wake up hungry. And you're alone, A single human is not a threat to most predators. A single human is dinner. You hear something? A crack. A branch breaking under weight. You stop. Listen. The sound doesn't repeat. Could be an animal. Could be another human. Could be the wind, except there is no wind. And now you're standing frozen trying to decide if investigating or fleeing is the better option. Both could get you killed. Welcome to decision-making in the Pleistocene. You choose to keep moving. Standing still accomplishes nothing except making you an easy target. The sound doesn't follow. Whatever made it, if anything actually made it, isn't interested in you. Yet. The yet is implied in every moment of prehistoric life. Darkness is falling fast now. The brief twilight period is ending. Soon it'll be full night, and your options will narrow to find shelter and hope you survive until morning, or keep stumbling through the dark and probably walk off a cliff or into a predator. Neither option is great. Both are better than standing here paralyzed by indecision. Then you see it. Orange light flickering in the distance. Fire. It's either your camp or another group's camp. And while another group brings its own set of complications, territorial disputes, resource competition, potential violence, it's still infinitely better than spending the night alone in the dark. You adjust your direction, head toward the light like a moth, hoping this particular flame doesn't burn you. As you get closer, you recognize landmarks. That rock formation, that scraggly tree. This is your camp. Relief floods through you so intensely your knees actually weaken. You're not lost. You made it back. You're going to survive another night. You enter the firelight circle. Everyone's already back. They look at you with a mixture of relief and irritation. Relief that you're not dead. Irritation that they were worried. No one says anything directly. Prehistoric communication is heavy on context and light on words. You can read the situation. They were about to send out a search party, or write you off as lost, depending on how generous the group is feeling tonight. The tracker approaches, examines you, notes the torn clothing, the bleeding feet, the general state of dishevelment. Grunts. It's a, "You're an idiot, but you're alive" grunt. You grunt back. "I'm an idiot, but I'm alive" agreement. This is how apologies work without formal language for complex emotional concepts. Someone hands you water. Not much. A few mouthfuls from a hollowed-out gourd that's been used by everyone and probably contains more bacteria than water. You drink it anyway. Dehydration is more immediately dangerous than whatever parasites might be swimming in there. The water tastes like the gourd and everyone's mouth, which is disgusting, but it's wet, and that's what matters. Food status, still none. Everyone's hungry. The hunting party came back empty-handed. Your solo expedition produced nothing. The camp's calorie situation has gone from bad to critical. Tomorrow, someone's going to have to make a difficult decision about whether to stay and keep hunting in this area or move on and hope the next location is better. Both options are gambles. You sit by the fire. Your feet are definitely infected. You can see the red streaks starting, the inflammation that means your body is fighting something. In a modern hospital, this would be a course of antibiotics. Here, it's wait and see if your immune system wins or if you lose your foot. Some people survive infections, some don't. The fossil record is full of both outcomes. The night sets in fully. The sounds of the darkness surround the camp howls, screeches, the movement of things best left unidentified. The fire burns. The watch shifts are assigned. You're too injured to take a shift tonight, which is both a relief and a guilt trip because everyone else has to cover your absence. You lie down on your grass bed, feet throbbing, stomach empty, and close your eyes. Tomorrow you'll hunt again, or gather, or scavenge, whatever it takes to not die. This is the reality of prehistoric existence. Every day is a survival challenge. Every night is a test, and success is measured simply by waking up the next morning. Sleep comes fitfully, interrupted by pain and hunger and the ever-present knowledge that something out there in the darkness is waiting. But sleep comes because you're exhausted, because your body demands it, because even in the most miserable circumstances, humans find a way to rest. And tomorrow, you'll do it all over again. Morning brings a decision point. The group is officially out of food, which means today isn't about strategy or preference. It's about finding anything edible before people start getting seriously weak. Starvation doesn't happen all at once. It's a gradual shutdown of systems, starting with your body burning through fat reserves you don't have, moving on to muscle, and eventually vital organs. You're not there yet. But another day or two without food and you will be. Someone mentions seeing vultures circling yesterday. Vultures mean carrion. Carrion means something died. And something dead is something you didn't have to kill, which saves energy and reduces risk. The modern mind recoils at the idea of eating roadkill. But your prehistoric ancestors didn't have that luxury. Recent research suggests that scavenging wasn't a desperate fallback. It was a deliberate, intelligent foraging strategy that may have actually shaped human evolution. The theory goes like this. Hunting requires massive energy expenditure with no guarantee of success. Scavenging, on the other hand, is relatively low effort. The animal's already dead. You just need to find it and claim it before something else does. Studies show that carrion is actually more predictable than previously thought, especially during seasons when plant foods are scarce. It's a buffer resource, the thing that keeps you alive when everything else fails. So you go looking for the dead thing, the whole group this time, because if there's a carcass, you'll need everyone to carry meat back before it spoils completely. And spoils is relative. Your ancestors had stomach acid significantly more potent than yours, specifically adapted to handle partially decomposed meat. Cooking, once fire became reliable, added another layer of pathogen protection. But even before that, humans were eating carrion and mostly surviving it. The vultures are easy to spot. They're circling over a rocky area maybe an hour's walk from camp. As you get closer, the smell hits you. Death has a particular odor, sweet, rotten, nauseating. It's the smell of decomposition, of bacteria breaking down tissues, of nature recycling nutrients. Your modern sensibilities find it revolting. Your prehistoric stomach growls in anticipation. The carcass is a deer, or was a deer. Now it's a mostly eaten deer that something killed a day or two ago. A leopard, probably, based on the kill pattern throat puncture, dragged into cover. The leopard ate its fill and left. Now it's the scavenger's turn. Vultures are already on it, tearing at what's left. They scatter when your group approaches, reluctantly, hopping a few feet away, but not leaving entirely. They'll wait. They're patient. What remains isn't pretty. The best parts, the organs, the tender muscle, are gone. What's left is tougher meat, sinew, bits clinging to bones. There's maggots, flies. The whole ecosystem of decomposition is already hard at work. In a modern context, this would be condemned as unsafe for consumption. In prehistoric context, this is lunch. Your group descends on the carcass like the scavengers you are. Stone tools come out. The process of butchering begins. It's harder than butchering fresh meat because the flesh has started to break down, making it slippery and difficult to cut cleanly. The smell is overwhelming. You're probably going to vomit, but you keep working because vomiting on an empty stomach is better than continued starvation. Someone cracks open a bone. Marrow, one of the best parts of any carcass, and often still viable even after the meat is gone. The marrow is fatty, calorie-dense, and relatively protected from bacteria by the bone casing. You suck it out, and it's rich and greasy, and honestly, kind of amazing when you're this hungry. This is the nutrition that kept your species alive during the lean times. But there's a problem. You're not alone. The leopard that killed this deer is still in the area, probably watching. Definitely annoyed that you're stealing its food. And while you're crouched over a carcass, hands covered in blood and gore, you're vulnerable. This is the risk of scavenging that researchers talk about, the danger of being attacked by a predator while you're distracted. The lookouts posted at the edges of the group suddenly tense. There's movement in the bushes, the rasping cough sound. Everyone freezes. The choice is immediate. Take what you have and run, or stay and try to claim more meat at the risk of confrontation. Your ancestors' survival depended on making these split-second risk assessments correctly. The decision is made. Grab what you can carry and move. Now. Everyone loads up with meat-rancid, fly-covered, partially decomposed meat that's going to keep you alive. You're carrying a leg, the hide still attached, the meat slippery in your hands. The group retreats, not quite running but moving quickly, while the leopard emerges to reclaim its kill. You've gotten maybe a third of what was left on the carcass. In modern weight, that's perhaps 20 to 30 pounds of barely edible meat distributed among 15 people. It's not much, but it's something. And something is infinitely better than nothing when you're facing starvation. Back at camp, the meat is immediately processed. Some of it gets cooked right away, thrown onto the fire to kill off the worst of the bacteria. The smoke and char help mask the taste of decay. Some pieces are cut thin and laid on rocks near the fire to dry. An attempt at preservation that might buy you an extra day or two before it's completely inedible. Prehistoric food preservation was basic at best: drying, smoking, maybe storing in a cool cave corner. There's no refrigeration, no canning, no way to make food last beyond a few days in most conditions. The meal is everything you'd expect from partially rotten meat. The texture is wrong, mushy in places, stringy in others. The taste is off, even with the char flavor trying to cover it. You chew anyway, swallow anyway. Hope your stomach acid is as adapted to this as the scientists say it is. Some people will get sick, vomiting, diarrhea, the whole unpleasant package of food poisoning. Some people will be fine. It's a gamble every single time. But you're not hungry anymore. For the first time in days, your stomach feels somewhat full. The calories are entering your system. Your body is getting the energy it needs to continue functioning. This is what scavenging did for your species. It kept you alive during the times when hunting failed, when gathering wasn't enough, when the alternative was death. You are the descendant of successful scavengers, and you're alive right now because your ancestors were willing to eat things that would make a modern health inspector weep. Your hand is bleeding again, not from hunting or gathering or fighting off predators from making tools. Flint knapping is what they call it, the process of striking stones together to create sharp edges for cutting, scraping, and stabbing. It's essential. It's unavoidable. And according to recent research, it's way more dangerous than anyone realized. A survey of modern flint knappers people who practice this craft as a hobby or for archaeological research revealed injury rates that are genuinely alarming. Deep lacerations that expose bone, stone flakes flying into eyes. One person required a tourniquet after piercing their ankle with the stone fragment. And these are people with access to safety equipment, first aid, and modern medicine. Your prehistoric ancestors had none of that. You're holding a core stone in one hand and a hammer stone in the other. The goal is to strike the core at just the right angle to flake off a sharp piece that can be used as a tool. Too soft, and nothing happens. Too hard, and the whole thing shatters into useless fragments. The angle has to be precise. The force has to be controlled. And even when you do everything right, sometimes the stone just decides to break wrong. You strike. A flake comes off. It's sharp, ridiculously sharp, sharper than most modern knives. The edge is literally only a few molecules thick at points, which is what makes stone tools so effective for cutting. It's also what makes them incredibly dangerous. The flake skitters across the rock you're working on and catches your thumb. Blood immediately wells up. The cut is deep. In 2025, this is a Band-Aid situation. Maybe stitches if it's bad enough. In prehistoric times, this is a potential death sentence. Infections were the silent killer of early humans, and an open wound is an infection waiting to happen. Your immune system will fight. Your body will try to heal. Whether it succeeds depends on factors you can't control. How many bacteria entered the wound? Whether you have any other injuries taxing your immune system, general nutritional status, luck. You wrap your thumb in a strip of hide. It's not clean. Nothing is clean. The hide was scraped reasonably well and has been sitting near the fire, so maybe the smoke killed some bacteria. Maybe not. You'll find out in a few days when the wound either starts to heal or starts to turn red and hot and swollen. But you need tools. Everyone needs tools, so you keep working. The next strike sends a flake flying. It misses you, but nearly hits the person working next to you. They grunt irritated. Personal space during flint knapping is a survival issue. Stone fragments can travel several feet at high velocity. They've been known to penetrate skin, embed in muscle, lodge in eyes, Every napping session is a risk assessment. The researchers who studied modern flint knapping injuries concluded that early humans literally risked life and limb to make tools. The knowledge of how to nap safely would have been crucial survival information, passed down from experienced craftspeople to learners. Watch how the expert holds the stone. Notice how they angle their body. See how they position other people outside the danger zone. This isn't just craft knowledge, it's medical prevention. You finally produce a usable tool. It's a hand axe, roughly teardrop-shaped, with a decent edge. You ran the risk of serious injury to create something that will last maybe a week before dulling or breaking. But without it, you can't butcher meat effectively, can't scrape hides, can't cut wood, can't defend yourself as well. Tools are the technological advantage that allowed humans to compete with physically superior predators. They're worth the risk. Your thumb throbs. The bleeding has mostly stopped, though the hide wrapping is soaked through. Tomorrow it might be fine. It might be infected. It might cost you your hand, your life, depending on how deep the bacteria got and how well your body responds. Studies of prehistoric human remains show individuals who survived amputations, serious infections, and disabling injuries. But for every person who survived, there were probably dozens who didn't. Around you, other people are napping. Everyone's got small cuts, minor injuries, the occasional serious wound. One person has a scar across their palm from a napping accident years ago that went septic, but they survived. Another has limited vision in one eye from a stone fragment that hit just right or just wrong. These are the costs of technology, the literal blood price of advancement. Someone holds up their finished spear point. It's beautiful, actually. Symmetrical, sharp, perfectly balanced. They're proud of it. They should be good tools mean better hunting, better defense, better survival odds. They also spent an hour making it and sustained 3 cuts in the process, one of which looks concerning. This is the trade-off: pain and risk in exchange for capability. The pile of stone flakes around the working area is growing. Each one is sharp enough to cut deeply with minimal pressure. You'll need to clear these away carefully, bury them, or dispose of them somewhere people won't accidentally step on them. Stone flakes in prehistoric times were basically natural caltrops, waiting to slice open an unwary foot. Tetanus hasn't been named yet, but it definitely exists, and a deep puncture wound filled with dirt is an excellent way to get it. Your hand hurts. Your feet hurt from yesterday. Your back hurts from sleeping on the ground. Every part of you hurts, and you're starting to wonder if being alive is just being in constant low-level pain with occasional spikes of acute agony. The answer, in prehistoric times, is yes. Pain is the default. Comfort is a brief, rare exception. Modern humans medicate, cushion, and eliminate pain. Your ancestors just endured it. But now you have a tool, and that tool might be what lets you eat tomorrow, might be what saves you from a predator, might be what gives you just enough advantage to survive another day. So you accept the cut on your thumb, the risk of infection, the constant low-grade injuries that come with stone tool manufacture, because the alternative is being without tools, and being without tools is being dead. The temperature is dropping. You can feel it in the morning, in the way your breath clouds in front of your face, in the way the ground is cold enough to numb your feet through your inadequate footwear. Winter is coming. And winter in prehistoric times wasn't the minor inconvenience of scraping ice off your car. It was a genuine threat to survival. Studies of Middle Pleistocene climate conditions in Europe reveal that humans had to endure brutally cold temperatures, not just during glacial periods, but even during relatively mild interglacial phases. Winter temperatures regularly dropped below freezing, sometimes for months at a time. And here's the kicker. Evidence for reliable fire use during much of this period is extremely sparse. Your ancestors were facing potentially fatal cold without the one technology that makes cold survivable. You're wearing animal hide. One layer, poorly cured, stiff in places, gaps in others. Archaeological evidence suggests humans used bear furs and animal skins for clothing for at least 300,000 years. The furs provided insulation, wind protection, some waterproofing. But they weren't parkas. They weren't modern winter gear. They were hides draped over bodies, held in place by cordage, or simply tucked around yourself. The cold is physical. It's not just feeling chilly. It's a progressive shutdown of your extremities as your body prioritizes keeping your core warm. Your fingers go numb first, then toes. Your face aches from the cold wind. Every breath hurts as frigid air hits your lungs. This is before buildings, before insulated walls, before any kind of climate control beyond huddling together and hoping. Night is worse. Exposure to cold during sleep represents a serious thermoregulation challenge. Your metabolic rate can only increase so much to generate heat. Beyond that, you're just cold and getting colder. Research using thermoregulation models shows that sleeping humans would have been at significant risk of hypothermia during cold nights, even in relatively temperate regions like the Iberian Peninsula. Your group huddles, everyone pressed together, sharing body heat. It's the most efficient way to stay warm without fire. And tonight, the fire is struggling because everything's damp from earlier rain. The smoke is worse than usual, thick and choking. But no one moves away because smoke means fire, and fire means heat, and heat means not freezing to death. Children are in the middle of the huddle. Elderly people pressed close to younger adults who generate more body heat. This isn't just compassion, it's survival strategy. Lose the children, and you lose the next generation. Lose the elderly, and you lose knowledge, experience, and hands for gathering and child care. Everyone has survival value. Everyone needs to make it through the winter. The shivering is constant, your body's last-ditch effort to generate heat through muscle movement. It burns calories you don't have, accelerates energy depletion when food is already scarce. Winter is a double threat. Increased energy needs for thermoregulation combined with decreased food availability. The math is brutal. Many people don't make it. Some researchers think this is what killed the Neanderthals. Not competition with modern humans, but the cumulative stress of increasingly harsh climate fluctuations between 44,000 and 40,000 years ago. Extended periods of extreme cold and drought that pushed their already stressed populations past the breaking point. They were possibly less adapted to cold than Homo sapiens, with evidence suggesting they may not have used clothing as extensively or effectively. When the climate turned severe enough, they couldn't survive it. You might not survive it either. The cold is seeping into your bones despite the huddle, despite the struggling fire. Your body is burning through its limited fat reserves to maintain core temperature. Tomorrow, you'll be weaker, hungrier, less capable of the physical exertion required to find food. It's a death spiral that plays out every winter. Cold increases calorie needs. Food scarcity prevents meeting those needs. Weakness makes finding food harder. Repeat until someone dies. Someone in the group is coughing. A wet, rattling cough that suggests respiratory infection. Cold weakens immune systems. Crowding spreads disease. Winter is disease season as much as it is cold season. You'll probably all get whatever this person has. Some will recover. Some won't. Pneumonia doesn't need a name to be deadly. The night stretches endlessly. Sleep comes in fits between bouts of shivering. You dream of warmth, of summer, of not being cold. Then you wake, and you're still cold, and it's still dark, and you're still here. The fire has died down. Someone needs to feed it. No one wants to leave the huddle. Eventually, someone does, because the alternative is everyone freezing. Dawn brings minimal relief. The sun rises but provides little warmth. The day will be spent searching for food in frozen landscapes where plants are dead and animals are scarce. If you're lucky, you'll find something. If you're not, you'll expend energy you can't replace and be even weaker tomorrow. This is winter in prehistoric times. Not a picturesque snow globe scene, not a cozy season of hot chocolate and fireplaces. A grinding test of endurance where survival is measured in body heat and calorie reserves, and whether you can make it to spring before your reserves run out. Many people don't make it. You're trying very hard to not be one of them. You've lost count of how many nights you've been doing this. The hunting, the gathering, the constant scrambling for food, the running from predators, the sleeping in inadequate shelter with one eye open. Time stops having meaning when every day is identical struggle. There's before winter, and during winter, and maybe after winter if you survive. But that's as granular as it gets. Tonight is just another night. Except it's not, because tonight the food situation has gone from critical to catastrophic. Someone's already too weak to stand. The coughing person from a few days ago isn't getting better. The infected wounds on your hand from tool making have developed red streaks traveling up your arm, a sign your immune system is losing the fight. The group is failing, and everyone knows it. There's a discussion happening, quiet, tense, about whether to move camp again, search for better hunting grounds, or stay and hope things improve. Moving requires energy no one has. Staying means continuing to fail in a location that's clearly not supporting the group. There's no good option, just degrees of bad. Someone suggests night hunting again. The birds in the cave. Maybe they've come back. Maybe there's something else to catch. It's desperate. It's dangerous. It's also the only plan anyone has. So you go, because not going means giving up, and humans don't give up until they're literally dead. The cave is dark. Obviously. You're carrying a torch this time. the precious fire transferred from camp to this branch, wrapped in fat-soaked material. The light pushes back the darkness, but also announces your presence to everything with eyes. You're choosing visibility over stealth because finding prey in absolute darkness is impossible. The birds are there. Not as many as before they learned their lesson, but some. The dazzling process begins again. The torch raised, the birds confused, the desperate grabbing. You catch 2. Someone else gets 3. It's not enough. It's never enough. But it's something. As you exit the cave, torch still burning, you see them. Eyes. Multiple sets of eyes reflecting the torchlight. The leopard has friends, or competitors. A pack of hyenas, judging by the sounds, the whooping calls that make your skin crawl. They've been waiting, patient, letting you do the work of finding food and now planning to take it from you. This is the reality check that researchers talk about when discussing scavenging risks. You're not just competing with other humans for resources. You're competing with every other predator and scavenger in the ecosystem. And they're better at it than you. Faster, stronger, better adapted to darkness. Your only advantages are fire, tools, and group coordination. The fire gets thrust toward the hyenas. They back off, slightly, not far enough. One of them darts in, testing. You swing your spear. It backs off again. This is the dance threat and counter-threat, everyone trying to determine if the fight is worth it. For you, it is. Those birds represent the difference between eating and not eating. For the hyenas, you might be easier prey than the birds are worth. The standoff lasts forever, or minutes. Time is weird when you're facing down predators. Eventually, they leave, or you do. The exact sequence is unclear because your heart is pounding so hard you can barely think. But you're back at camp with the birds, and no one died. So it counts as success. The birds are cooked, divided, gone in seconds. Still hungry, still cold, still sick, but marginally less so. This is victory in prehistoric terms, not thriving, just surviving. Another night survived. Another day earned. You lie down. Your infected hand is worse. The fever you've been fighting is winning. You might not make it. That's becoming increasingly clear. But tonight, you're still breathing, still conscious, still part of the group. Tomorrow is tomorrow's problem. The fire crackles. Someone's on watch. The sounds of the night surround you. Predators, prey, the wind through trees, the distant howl of something hunting. This is life. This has always been life. Humans against the elements, against predators, against their own biological limitations. You're the continuation of a line of survivors who faced these same challenges and barely won. Sleep takes you finally. Fitful, fever dream filled, but sleep nonetheless. And somewhere in the darkness, the leopard watches and waits. Because patience is what predators do best. And sooner or later, everyone's luck runs out. You wake up, and you shouldn't have. The infection in your hand has spread up your arm. The red streaks now reaching your shoulder. Your fever is high enough that the world feels disconnected, like you're watching yourself from outside your body. In any rational assessment of prehistoric survival, you should be dead or dying. But you're not, because someone is taking care of you. The person leaning over you is old, maybe 40, which in prehistoric terms is ancient. They're pressing something wet and cool against your forehead. It's a poultice made from plants. The smell sharp and medicinal. You have no idea what plants. Neither does the person applying it, not in terms of chemical compounds or active ingredients, but they know it works. They've seen it work. Knowledge passed down through generations of trial and error and watching what worked and what killed people. Recent research reveals that the use of medicinal plants goes back deep into prehistory. Neanderthals were using plants not just for food, but for medicine, anti-inflammatory compounds, antibiotics, pain relief. Yarrow for wounds, willow bark for pain, honey for infections. This wasn't sophisticated pharmacology. This was desperate pattern recognition. This plant makes the pain stop. That one makes the swelling go down. This one prevents the wound from festering. The person tending you, let's call them the healer, because that's functionally what they are, is crushing leaves between their teeth, making a paste that gets applied directly to your infected wound. It burns. The sensation cuts through the fever fog, sharp enough to make you gasp. That's probably a good sign. Dead tissue doesn't feel pain. The fact that you're hurting means there's still living tissue worth saving. Here's what's happening that you can't see. This is cooperation in action. The foundational human behavior that allowed your species to survive when everything else wanted you dead. You're currently useless. You can't hunt, can't gather, can't contribute to group defense. In purely economic terms, you're a drain on resources. The rational thing would be to let you die. But humans aren't purely rational. Studies of modern hunter-gatherer societies show extensive caregiving for sick and injured group members, food sharing that extends beyond immediate family, collective child care, protection of vulnerable individuals. This isn't altruism in the warm, fuzzy sense. This is calculated cooperation that evolved because groups that took care of each other survived better than groups that didn't. The math works like this. Today you're sick and need help. Tomorrow the healer might get injured and need you. The person who shares food with you when you're weak expects you to share when they're weak. It's reciprocal altruism backed by social pressure and reputation management. If you're known as someone who doesn't help others, others won't help you. And in prehistoric times, not being helped is death. But there's more than reciprocity at work. The healer tending your wound is related to you, not closely, maybe a distant cousin, but there's kinship there. Early human groups were probably composed of extended family networks, where helping a sick group member meant helping someone who shared your genes. Kin selection explains a lot of cooperative behavior. You help relatives because their survival increases the chance your shared genes get passed on. Someone else brings water. Not much. Water's still scarce, but enough to keep you hydrated. Another person brings food, a small portion of the communal meal set aside for you, even though you didn't contribute to getting it. This is food sharing, one of the key behavioral innovations that made humans human. Chimps don't do this. Other primates barely do this. Humans do this constantly. The evolutionary puzzle that researchers debate is, how did large-scale cooperation among unrelated individuals evolve? Early human groups were small and kin-based, where cooperation made genetic sense. But modern hunter-gatherers live in bands of mostly unrelated individuals who still cooperate extensively. The transition from helping family to helping strangers required some major cognitive shifts. The answer involves cognition, language, and culture. Once humans developed the ability to communicate complex ideas, track reputations, and establish social norms, cooperation could be enforced through means other than kinship. You help others because it's what we do. Because everyone's watching and your reputation matters. Because being cast out of the group is death. You're benefiting from millennia of evolved cooperative behavior. The person treating your wound isn't calculating genetic relatedness coefficients. They're acting on deeply ingrained social instincts that tell them group member is sick, help group member. And those instincts exist because your ancestors who had them survived better than ancestors who didn't. The poultice is changed. More crushed plants. The healer is mixing something else now, honey, if you're lucky. Honey has antimicrobial properties that humans have used for wound treatment for at least 5,000 years, and probably much longer. The Egyptians documented it extensively, but they weren't the first to figure it out. Your prehistoric ancestors discovered it through observation. Wounds covered in honey heal better than wounds left open. The fever is breaking. Maybe. It's hard to tell, but you're conscious enough to recognize faces, to understand that you're being cared for, to feel something approximating gratitude. These people could have left you, could have moved camp and let you die. Instead, they stayed, tended you, shared resources they could barely spare. This is what makes humans special. Not tools, not fire, cooperation. You're going to survive. Probably. The infection might still win. Infections are unpredictable and you don't have antibiotics, but your odds just improved dramatically. Because you're not alone. Because humans figured out millions of years ago that together we're stronger than apart. Because cooperation, for all its complications and costs, works. There's crying. Constant crying. A baby, maybe 3 months old, is having the worst night of its very short life. You're awake because everyone's awake because babies don't come with volume controls, and prehistoric nights are long and terrible for everyone. The mother is trying everything. Nursing, rocking, walking in circles around the fire. Nothing's working. The baby screams. Here's what you've been told about prehistoric infant mortality. It was catastrophically high. Nearly 40% of babies died before their first birthday. Life was brutal. Healthcare was non-existent. And being born in prehistoric times was basically a death sentence. Except recent research suggests that's not quite right. A study analyzing United Nations population data from 97 countries revealed something counterintuitive. The number of infant burials in archaeological sites tells us more about birth rates than death rates. In other words, lots of baby graves doesn't necessarily mean lots of babies died. It could mean lots of babies were born. And if lots of babies were being born and surviving to adulthood, that suggests prehistoric mothers were actually pretty good at keeping their kids alive. The mother with the screaming infant is demonstrating this right now. She's not giving up. She's not leaving the baby to die. She's actively problem-solving, trying different soothing techniques, seeking help from other group members. Another woman comes over, probably the grandmother, and takes the baby, examining it with practiced hands, checking for obvious problems, feeling for fever, looking for signs of injury or illness. Childbirth in prehistoric times was risky. No epidurals, no C-sections, no emergency medical intervention if things went wrong. Studies of skeletal remains suggest young adult females did face elevated mortality risk, possibly associated with first pregnancies. But if you survived childbirth, and many women did, you had a decent chance of raising your baby to adulthood. The grandmother is making a decision. She hands the baby back and gestures for the mother to try feeding again, but from a different position. This is knowledge transfer in action. The grandmother has raised her own children, possibly helped raise other people's children, has decades of experience with infant care. She knows things the young mother hasn't learned yet. And she's sharing that knowledge because the survival of the next generation benefits everyone. The baby is nursing now. The crying has stopped. Everyone can breathe. This seems like a minor victory, but it's actually huge. A baby that won't nurse is a baby that's going to die. Getting a distressed infant to feed is literally life-saving. And the fact that the grandmother knew how to make it happen speaks to the accumulated wisdom that prehistoric peoples possessed about childcare. The assumption has been that ancient people didn't know how to care for babies properly, that high infant mortality was inevitable due to ignorance and lack of medicine. But the evidence suggests otherwise. Humans have been raising babies successfully for hundreds of thousands of years. We didn't suddenly figure out how to keep infants alive when modern medicine appeared. We've been doing it all along. Yes, some babies died. Infections, birth defects, accidents, malnutrition during harsh seasons. But many babies survived. Your existence proves it. You're descended from an unbroken line of babies who made it to reproductive age, going back millions of years. Every single one of your ancestors survived infancy. That's not luck. That's care. The mother is settling down now, the baby asleep in her arms. She's exhausted. New mothers in prehistoric times didn't have cribs or baby monitors or the ability to put the baby down safely and walk away. The baby was on your body or within arm's reach at all times because predators exist and infant abduction by leopards was a real threat. Being a prehistoric parent was physically demanding in ways modern parents can barely imagine. But they did it, generation after generation, despite the challenges, despite the risks, despite the lack of everything modern parents consider essential. No diapers, just learning to read when your baby needs to eliminate and holding them away from yourself. No formula nursing or finding a wet nurse or the baby dies. No baby food pre-chewing adult food and transferring it mouth to your infant. Gross by modern standards. Essential for survival. The camp quiets. The baby crisis is resolved. Everyone can try to sleep again, but there will be another crisis tomorrow. Babies require constant vigilance, constant care, constant problem solving, and prehistoric people provided it. Not because they were better than modern people, but because they had to. There was no alternative. You kept your baby alive, or you didn't have a baby. The research suggesting better infant care than previously assumed has implications. It means prehistoric women weren't passive victims of high mortality, helplessly watching their babies die. They were active agents with knowledge and skills, making decisions that kept their children alive. They were good mothers, skilled caretakers, survivors raising survivors. And that screaming baby that just fell asleep? In 15 years, they might be a skilled hunter, a knowledgeable healer, a parent themselves, passing on the care they received to the next generation. This is how humans persist, not through individual toughness, but through collective care, through mothers who don't give up, through grandmothers who share knowledge, through groups who value their youngest members enough to protect them through the vulnerable years. Something changes. You're not sure what exactly, but you can feel it. The air is different. The nights are shorter. The morning frost isn't quite as brutal. Spring is coming. Maybe. Possibly. The season that means survival, if you can just hold on a little longer. Your infection has stabilized. You're weak, but mobile. The poultices worked, or your immune system won, or you got lucky, probably all three. Your hand will never work quite right again. 2 fingers don't bend properly, the scarring too severe, but you're alive. And being alive with a damaged hand is infinitely better than being dead with a perfect corpse. The group is stirring with something like hope. Food is still scarce, but less desperately so. A successful hunt yesterday brought down a deer, a real deer, not a carcass, an actual fresh kill. The hunters worked together, used cooperation and strategy, and the accumulated knowledge of generations to bring down an animal that could have killed any one of them individually. This is what human hunting actually looks like. Not lone warriors facing down prey in glorious combat. Team efforts, coordinated movements, communication. One person drives the deer toward others who are waiting. Spears are thrown from multiple angles. If it doesn't die immediately, the group tracks it until exhaustion or blood loss finishes the job. It's strategic, collaborative, and depends entirely on humans' ability to work together toward a common goal. The success doesn't mean hunting gets easy. It just means today you eat. Tomorrow is still uncertain. The day after that is a complete mystery. But you're starting to believe there might be a day after that. A week after. Months after. Spring means plants returning. Animals having offspring that are easier to catch than adults. The world becoming slightly less hostile. Plans are being made. The group might split temporarily. Some people going to a known fishing area, others staying to hunt small game near the cave. This is strategic resource exploitation, the kind of planning that requires cognitive abilities beyond other primates. You're imagining future scenarios, weighing options, communicating complex ideas about locations you're not currently at. This is what big brains are for. There's talk of meeting another group. Humans are social beyond their immediate band. Networks of groups that interact, trade, share information, sometimes intermarry. You're not isolated out here. There are other humans, probably within a few days' travel, dealing with similar challenges. Maybe they know where food is more abundant, Maybe they have tools or knowledge you don't. Maybe they're hostile, and meeting them is a risk. But isolation is also a risk. Groups that don't interact are groups that miss opportunities. The decision is made. A few people will scout for the other group. Try to establish contact. See if cooperation is possible. This is intergroup coordination, another uniquely human behavior. Most social animals cooperate within their group and compete with other groups. Humans do both, sometimes simultaneously. We cooperate when it benefits us. We compete when necessary. We're flexible in ways that other species aren't. You're not going on the scouting mission. Your hand isn't healed enough. You'd be a liability. So you stay at camp with the others who aren't fit for the journey, the still nursing mothers, the very old, the very young. This isn't abandonment. This is task allocation based on capability. Everyone contributes what they can. Right now, your contribution is staying alive and not requiring rescue. The scouts leave. The camp feels smaller, more vulnerable. Fewer people means fewer eyes watching for predators. Fewer people capable of defense if something attacks. But it also means fewer mouths to feed while they're gone. Everything's a trade-off. Days pass. You're gathering what you can with one functional hand plants, mostly, things that don't run away. It's not glamorous, but plant foods provide reliable calories when hunting fails. Your ancestors ate more plants than popular imagination suggests. The paleo diet wasn't all meat. It was whatever was edible and available, which often meant lots of roots, tubers, leaves, and nuts. The scouts return. They found the other group. There's going to be a meeting, an exchange of information. Maybe trading of goods. Your group has good stone for tools. They have access to better hunting grounds. Maybe sharing of mates, because genetic diversity matters, and everyone's related to everyone in small populations. This is how human networks formed, how knowledge spread, how cultural innovations moved between groups. The meeting happens. It's tense at first, strange faces, uncertain intentions, the possibility of conflict. But there's also opportunity, food sharing, story sharing. The older members of both groups comparing notes on medicinal plants, the young people eyeing each other with interest that has nothing to do with hunting. This is humanity forming its social networks, one tentative interaction at a time. You survive the meeting. Everyone survives the meeting. No one got killed or injured. Information was exchanged that might save lives later. This counts as success. And as both groups part ways, there's an understanding that next time you meet, you'll be allies rather than threats. Maybe. Hopefully. As long as resources don't get too scarce, and desperation doesn't override cooperation. But tonight, back at your own camp, things feel different. Less desperate. Less like every moment might be your last. Spring is definitely coming. You can smell it in the air, see it in the new plant growth, feel it in the gradually warming nights. You might actually make it through this winter. Your group might survive intact. And next winter, you'll be stronger, more prepared, better equipped to handle the challenges. This is the turning point. The moment when survival stops being a minute-by-minute question and starts being a reasonable expectation. You're not safe. You'll never be truly safe. But you're stable. And stable is the best prehistoric life gets. The winter is ending. Actually ending. The evidence is undeniable. Now plants are growing, animals are returning. The temperature is rising to something almost comfortable. You've survived. Your group has survived. Not everyone made it. You lost 2 people to illness, 1 to an accident, 1 simply disappeared and was never found. But most of you are here. Most of you made it. The cave you've been living in for months is starting to feel less like shelter and more like prison. It's dark. It's damp. It smells like smoke and humans and confinement. The urge to move, to migrate to better territory, is becoming overwhelming. This is part of the cycle winter hunkering spring movement, following the resources as they shift with the seasons. Planning the migration is complex. You need to coordinate movement of the entire group: adults, children, elderly, injured. You need to carry tools, weapons, fire. You need to know where you're going. Have some confidence that the destination will be better than the current location. This requires memory, planning, communication, cognitive abilities that humans excel at. Someone remembers a valley about a week's journey from here, where game is abundant in spring. Someone else knows the water sources along the route. A third person recalls that another group sometimes uses that area, which means potential conflict, but also potential cooperation. The collective knowledge of the group is pooled, assessed, used to make decisions that affect everyone's survival. The decision is made. You're moving. The cave is abandoned, not permanently. Maybe you'll return next winter, but for now, you're going where the food is. Everything portable is gathered. The fire is transferred to a torch that will hopefully stay lit during the journey. If it goes out, starting a new fire is possible but difficult and time-consuming. Better to keep it alive. The journey is hard. Everything is hard. But it's a different kind of hard than winter's desperate survival. This is productive hardship. Movement toward something better rather than static suffering. Your damaged hand still doesn't work right, but you're managing. You carry lighter loads, contribute where you can. Don't slow the group down too much. The landscape is transforming. Spring isn't subtle when you're paying attention. Everywhere there's green, new growth, the smell of plants and earth instead of smoke and death. You pass the site where you scavenged that carrion weeks ago. There's nothing left now. The bones picked clean by scavengers and scattered by wind. Nature recycles everything eventually. On the 3rd day of travel, you find a massive herd of prey animals: deer, gazelle, something large and edible. Too many to count. This is what spring means: abundance, at least temporarily. The hunters in your group are already strategizing. This could be days of food. Weeks, if you can preserve it. The calculations are different when there's enough. The hunt is organized, collaborative. Everyone has a role. Even you, with your damaged hand, participate. You're part of the group that drives the animals toward the ambush point. It's exhausting. It's dangerous. But it works. Your group brings down 3 animals. 3. The kind of success that would have seemed impossible during the desperate winter months. The butchering takes hours. Everyone works. The meat is divided, though not equally. The successful hunters get more, but everyone gets something. This is food sharing enforced by social pressure, and the knowledge that tomorrow You might be the unsuccessful hunter who needs others to share. Cooperation is enlightened self-interest. Some of the meat is eaten immediately. You're all so hungry that even after eating until you feel sick, the food is still disappearing. Your bodies are making up for months of deprivation. Some meat is set aside for smoking and drying food security for the days ahead. The bones are cracked for marrow. The hides are scraped for future use as clothing or shelter. Nothing is wasted, because waste means hunger later. That night, with full stomachs and spring warmth in the air, the mood is different than any night you remember. There's something like joy. Not modern joy. There's still pain and loss and the constant awareness of mortality. But relief, pride, the satisfaction of having survived something that kills most people. You made it. Against all odds, through starvation and infection and predators and cold. You made it. Someone starts making sounds that might be singing. Others join in. This is art, culture, the expression of human experience through something other than survival. You don't have words for what you're feeling, but the sounds capture something. Exhaustion and triumph, and the simple fact of still being alive. The fire burns bright. For once, there's enough fuel to make it large, warm, welcoming. The leopard that's been following you for months is out there somewhere. But tonight, you don't care. Let it watch. Let it learn that humans are survivors, that we cooperate and adapt and refuse to die even when everything suggests we should. You look around at the group. These people who kept you alive when you were too sick to contribute, who shared food when there wasn't enough, who taught you about plants and hunting and tools, who carried the children and supported the elderly and managed to hold together through months of brutal hardship. This is what made humans successful. Not individual strength, collective resilience. The long night is ending. Spring is here. And you, improbably, impossibly, are alive to see it. The night hunting, the scavenging, the desperate scrambling for survival that was winter. This is spring. Different challenges ahead, but challenges faced as a group, with knowledge and cooperation and the accumulated wisdom of countless generations who survived before you. You're not safe. Life in prehistoric times is never truly safe. Tomorrow might bring new dangers, new struggles, new tests of your ability to survive. But tonight, you're fed and warm and surrounded by your group. And that's as close to peace as prehistoric existence gets. There's someone in your group who shouldn't exist. Statistically, biologically, by any reasonable measure of prehistoric survival, they should be dead. They're old. Not modern old where people routinely hit 80 or 90. Genuinely old for prehistoric times, maybe 50, possibly 60 years. And the fact that they're alive is nothing short of miraculous. Let's talk about life expectancy, because the numbers you've heard are misleading. Yes, average life expectancy in prehistoric times was around 33 years. But that's average, which includes all the babies who died in infancy, all the children who didn't make it past 5, all the young adults who succumbed to injury or infection. If you survived childhood, a big if you had a decent shot at making it to your 50s or even 60s. The old man of La Chapelle is proof of this, a Neanderthal who lived 56,000 years ago and reached what scientists call old age. He'd lost so many teeth that bone had regrown over his gums, suggesting he'd been toothless for years, possibly decades. He suffered from arthritis. He would have needed his food pre-chewed by others, and yet his group kept him alive, cared for him, fed him. The old person in your group serves a similar function. They can't hunt anymore. Their body won't allow it. They can't travel long distances or carry heavy loads. But they can do something infinitely more valuable. They remember. They remember the last time winter was this harsh and what the group did to survive it. They remember which plants are safe to eat and which ones will kill you. They remember the locations of water sources that only appear in certain seasons. They remember tribal relationships, who can be trusted, who's historically been hostile. They're a living database of survival information. This is the evolution of grandparents that researchers talk about. About 30,000 years ago, something changed in human demographics. Suddenly, people were routinely living past their reproductive years. 3 generations could coexist: grandparents, parents, children. This was revolutionary. Before this shift, human groups consisted primarily of adults and children. Knowledge had to be transmitted quickly, within a single generation, because the elders weren't surviving long enough to teach multiple generations. But once grandparents appeared, knowledge could accumulate. Skills could be refined. Cultural complexity could increase. The old person is teaching right now, showing the younger members how to properly treat leather to make it waterproof. It's a process that takes days and requires specific knowledge about which materials to use and in what sequence. Get it wrong, and the leather is ruined. Get it right, and you have clothing that might keep you dry in the rain. This knowledge didn't come from trial and error in a single lifetime. It accumulated over generations, passed down through elders who survived long enough to teach. Kinship ties are what make this work. The old person is related to most of the group parent, grandparent, aunt, uncle. There's genetic incentive to keep them alive because they increase the survival odds of their relatives. But there's also cultural incentive. The knowledge they possess has value that transcends biology. Paleolithic social bonds were built on these kinship structures. Family groups, typically 25 people or fewer, held together by blood relationships and mutual dependence. Marriage happened within or between these groups. Endogamy or exogamy, depending on circumstances. The rules were complex, probably based on trial and error about what genetic mixing produced the healthiest offspring. But kinship wasn't just about reproduction. It was about establishing trust networks in a dangerous world. Your kin were the people you could rely on, the ones who would share food, defend you against threats, take care of you when you were sick or old. These social bonds were the foundation of human survival. The old person finishes their lesson. The younger members now know something they didn't know before. That knowledge will be tested, refined, and eventually passed down to the next generation. This is how culture works, how humans accumulated the vast stores of knowledge that allowed us to dominate the planet, despite being physically unremarkable. Tonight, the old person will eat before the younger adults, but after the children. They'll be positioned close to the fire, in the warmest spot. Their comfort is prioritized not out of pure altruism, but because their survival has group value. Their infrastructure, living storage of crucial information. And when they die, which could be tomorrow or 5 years from now, there will be mourning. Not just emotional loss, though that's real, but practical concern about what knowledge died with them. Did they teach everything they knew? Did someone learn the water source locations, the plant identification, the stories about the other groups? This is why elders talk so much. They're desperately trying to download their knowledge before their biological hard drive fails. You're watching them teach and thinking about your own future. You're young now, but if you're lucky, very lucky, you'll be old someday. You'll be the one whose survival depends on whether the group values your knowledge enough to keep feeding you when you can't contribute physically. You'll be the living proof that humans care for each other in ways other species don't. For now, you listen. You learn. You absorb the knowledge that might save your life or someone else's. And you understand, perhaps for the first time, that survival isn't just about strength or speed or being able to hunt. It's about connection, community, the bonds that hold people together through the worst that nature can throw at them. This is the legacy of the Stone Age. Not just the tools, though those matter, but the social structures that made those tools useful. The cooperation that let humans spread across the entire planet, despite having no natural weapons or armor. The kinship bonds that ensured knowledge survived beyond individual lifespans. You are the inheritor of all of this. Every social instinct you have, every impulse to help others, or form relationships, or teach what you know, that's millions of years of evolution. You're built for connection, designed for cooperation. The product of ancestors who survived because they took care of each other. The stars are out. All of them. More than you can count. More than you can comprehend. There's no light pollution here in prehistoric times. No cities glowing on the horizon. Just darkness and stars, and the small circle of firelight that represents everything you know. You're lying on your back, looking up, and for once, you're not thinking about predators or food or survival. You're just looking. This moment, this rare moment of peace, is brought to you by 10,000 generations of humans who didn't quit. Every single one of your ancestors survived long enough to reproduce. They lived through famines, plagues, predation, injury, infection, climate catastrophes. They endured things that would break you, and they did it without antibiotics or electricity or any of the comforts you take for granted. The human story, the real human story, isn't the one in history books starting with ancient civilizations. It's the story written in fossil records and stone tools and ancient DNA. It's the story of Homo habilis picking up rocks and realizing they could be shaped into something useful. Of Homo erectus discovering fire and migrating out of Africa. Of countless species and subspecies that emerged, adapted, and either survived or died out. You are Homo sapiens, anatomically modern humans. Your species appeared roughly 300,000 to 200,000 years ago. You're not the first human species, not even close, but you're the one that made it. While Neanderthals and Denisovans and other human species went extinct, your lineage survived. Not because you were stronger, Neanderthals were probably stronger. Not because you were better adapted to cold, they had that advantage too. But because you were flexible, cooperative, innovative. The Stone Age, the period you're currently living through, spans from about 3.3 million years ago to whenever metal tools get invented. That's not a specific date, because different regions transition at different times. Some places are still in the Stone Age in terms of technology, even in modern times. But the point is, this age, this time of stone tools and hunting and gathering, is the default state of human existence. Everything that comes after agriculture, cities, civilization, that's the exception. This is the rule. For 99% of human history, people lived like you're living right now. In small groups, following food, using stone and wood and bone for tools, cooperating to survive. Everything about your brain and body was shaped by this lifestyle. Your social instincts, your stress responses, your love of storytelling and pattern recognition and cooperation. Modern humans think we've evolved beyond this. We live in cities. We have technology. We've advanced. But evolution doesn't work that fast. You're still carrying the genetics and psychology of a Stone Age human. That's why crowded spaces stress you out. Your brain is designed for groups of 25, not cities of millions. That's why you crave social connection. Isolation was death for your ancestors. That's why you're anxious. Hypervigilance kept your ancestors alive. The fire is dying down. Someone needs to feed it. That someone is you. You get up, add wood, watch the flames rise. Fire. The technology that changed everything, Homo erectus probably discovered it 1.8 to 1.6 million years ago. It provided warmth, protection, cooking capability. It allowed humans to expand into cold climates and eat a wider variety of foods. Every human civilization since has depended on controlled fire. You sit back down. The old person is still awake, staring into the flames. They might be remembering their own youth, their own struggles, the people they've lost over the years. Or maybe they're just enjoying the warmth. It's impossible to know what someone else is thinking, even when you share a language, even when you've lived together for years. This is the eternal human condition. Separate minds trying to connect. But you do connect. Humans always find ways to connect. Through shared labor, through kinship, through the simple act of sitting by the same fire and existing in proximity. Modern people underestimate how powerful that is, just being near other humans. Your ancestors knew. They had to know. Because being alone was death. The night hunting, the scavenging, the infections and injuries and constant danger, all of that will continue tomorrow. This isn't a happy ending where everything gets easy. Life in prehistoric times is grinding. Relentless difficulty punctuated by brief moments of peace. But it's life. And as long as you're alive, as long as your group is alive, there's possibility. You're not thinking about legacy or evolution or the vast sweep of human history. You're thinking about tomorrow's hunt, about whether your hand will heal enough to be useful, about the baby who was crying earlier and hoping they stay healthy, about practical, immediate concerns. This is how history is made, not through grand plans, but through millions of small decisions about survival. The stars wheel overhead, unchanging, eternal. They were here before humans, and they'll be here after. But right now, In this moment, you get to see them. You get to exist under this vast sky, part of a group, fed and relatively warm, alive against all odds. And that's enough. Tomorrow, you'll hunt again, or gather, or make tools, or teach someone younger what you've learned. The cycle continues, generation after generation, building on what came before, making incremental progress toward a future you'll never see, but that your descendants will inherit. This is the human story. Not perfect, not easy, but persistent, resilient, cooperative. You are part of an unbroken chain going back millions of years. And if you're very lucky, if you survive long enough, if you manage to reproduce and raise your children to adulthood, you'll be part of the chain going forward. The fire crackles. The night deepens. Sleep is calling. And for once, finally, mercifully, you let it take you without fear. Because tonight, right now, you're safe. You're fed. You're surrounded by your group. And that's as good as life gets in the Stone Age. Rest well, prehistoric survivor. You've earned it. So here you are, back in 2025, in your bed, with its mattress and pillows and blankets, in your climate-controlled room where the temperature is comfortable and there's no smoke and no predators, with electricity and running water and antibiotics and all the modern miracles that separate you from your ancestors. Feel grateful yet? Because you should be. Every time you flip a light switch, you're accessing technology your ancestors would have considered magic. Every time you eat food from a refrigerator, you're avoiding the food insecurity that defined human existence for hundreds of thousands of years. Every time you take medicine for an infection, you're surviving something that would have killed your prehistoric counterparts. Modern life has its stresses, sure, but you're not running from leopards. You're not eating carrion because it's that, or starve. You're not living in constant pain from untreated injuries and infections. You're not watching half your children die before age 5. You have it so much better than any human who lived before the modern era. And yet, despite all that comfort, you carried the same brain that your Stone Age ancestors did, the same social needs, the same craving for connection and meaning and belonging, the same anxiety that kept them alive by making them constantly vigilant. You're running ancient software on modern hardware, and sometimes that creates problems, but it also creates your humanity. So when you can't sleep tonight, or tomorrow night, or next week, remember that insomnia is your ancestral inheritance. Someone in your group had to stay awake to watch for predators. When you feel anxious for no apparent reason, remember that your ancestors' anxiety about real threats kept them alive long enough to have you. When you crave social connection, remember that humans are fundamentally cooperative creatures who evolved to need each other. You're the product of millions of years of survival against impossible odds. Every uncomfortable instinct you have was adaptive once. Every social bond you form echoes the kinship ties that held your ancestors together. You're not broken, you're human. And humans are simultaneously incredibly fragile and astoundingly resilient. Now, close your eyes. Sink into that comfortable bed. Feel grateful for walls and roofs and doors with locks. Appreciate the absence of predators, the abundance of food, the miracle of modern medicine. And as you drift off to sleep, remember, you're safe in a way your ancestors never were. Good night, tired listener, and until next time.